All righty, there we are. All right, people, good afternoon. A warm welcome to our online workshop for members. Very nice that you're making time for this and that you join us today. Today, we will spend time on mentoring and migration. As you guys know, every month we organize a community workshop. It's a way of like a learning community to exchange and to focus into different topics. And this year, we also have a series of very different topics, such as mentoring. And like next month, we will talk about mentoring and marketing, very surprising topics once in a while as well. Today, we will focus on mentoring and migration. And we invited a special guest today, Jens. Your last name is challenging for me. Let me check it. Jens Leutloff.
Leutloff.
Thank you. And Jens, if we can call you with first name, is expert in migration, law, and Middle East studies, with a very strong vision on how to prevent racism and what could be the role of mentoring in it. We met you a couple of weeks ago due to an innovative collaborative project of Mentoring Europe that we were running. My colleague Gus is there, where we explored how to set up mentoring programs for young refugees, and you were helping us with your expertise to teach us how to use mentoring to break through systems. So we invited you today to give your introduction into the topic. Let's get started, because some of you guys have to leave earlier. So I give you the floor, Jens, so that you can share your screen and start your story. You will talk about 25, 30 minutes, and then we have time for questions and answers and interaction, okay? Jens, all yours.
Thank you, Silvia, and thanks a lot for this wonderful introduction. Is it possible for you all to see the screen now?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, wonderful. So it's not possible for whatever reason to give you the whole screen of the slides.
But don't worry.
It doesn't work, so we don't want to lose time on that. So we just continue like that, I think. So it's mentoring as a tool to break through systems today. I would like to talk about this for 25 minutes. So I would like to concentrate only on the most important parts of that topic. One could easily talk about this topic for days, as you can imagine. So I would like to define systems. Systems we find in economy or education, in art, in science, in health, in religion, in politics, sports, and many more. These social systems are for migrants systems which are kind of a closed shop. So it's not possible to become part of them so easily. It's not possible to become, for example, so easily part of the education system or the health system. So mentoring as a tool to break through systems means to enable people to be part of systems or even become part of groups which overcome systems in the way of blocking their way, of maybe discriminating them. So we have to make a difference, and as people working in the mentoring field, so we need integration and inclusion. And this, of course, as I said, as well means that we have to work toward diversity, anti-discrimination, and anti-racism. And we need, for these aims, transcultural competences. That's a very important thing, and transcultural communication. And I will talk a little bit more about that today. As well, we all need readiness to accept change, to grow and change our perspectives. We need much more, but these are the most important things I would like to name. So mentoring as a tool to break through systems means as well to be able to adapt to the mentee. And I will talk about this a little bit more just in a few moments, but I would like to talk about some practical informations in this context. So it would be important to sometimes just give simple information, to always give relevant information. So to be an educated mentor, and I will define what I think this means. We need good communication, and of course, as it is cross-cultural communication, in many cases, we need good transcultural communication. And that's an important issue. So we need to identify those relevant facts, like, for example, the value of education. The idea that it is really worth to invest years and years of your life without earning real money in your education. So if you're coming from a society which does not pay back these investments you've made in your life, then how should you know that it's worth it? So of course, one needs a common language or languages and self-reflection of the mentor. And the mentor is sometimes part of the systems. So in many cases, he or she is white and maybe male. If it's a he, has a good education, has had a job, had a successful life in this society we're talking about. So to be able to identify what would be an important information somebody else does not have, you need self-reflection. And so what we are talking about is building bridges. And building bridges means, in a sense, to be able to integrate somebody into your society, but being able and open enough and ready to grow personally, to be able to grow and integrate in the cultural ideas and values of your mentee as well. That's what integration is about. So we are not talking about, and that's such a common misunderstanding that I wanted to address it today, about assimilation. So the idea that the mentor is kind of paving the way for the mentee to become so fully integrated into society that he or she assimilates into the society, I think is not a postmodern idea and does not work in a postmodern society. So even if it would be something you would wish for, I don't, then I don't think it's possible to reach that aim. So integration, and I'm quoting here somebody who would be a mentee if offered a mentor relation ship from an organization. That's somebody from Madrid, who talked to Susan Plan, and she wrote about that in her book Coming of Age in Madrid, an oral history of unaccompanied Moroccan migrant minors. And Idris, he says, when you can communicate with someone and they tell you things and they ask questions and they answer you and like that, that is integration. So mentoring can be integration, and mentoring is maybe the core of successful integration. So breaking through systems means, of course, that a mentor and a mentee both are eager and ready to talk about stuff and things and ways and values. And of course, they don't have the same opinion. Nobody has when two people communicate. So conflicts and discussions between mentor and mentee are a very natural thing and not something to be avoided. It's something which helps learning, but of course one needs the right way to talk about conflicting points and the right ideas about how to lead a good discussion. So there's a German author called Aladdin El-Maf'alani, and he wrote about the integration paradox, that kind of only by conflict integration can be reached. So the mentor, of course, can not only be a role model of something, you know, somebody successful in a society, but as well, of course, a role model how to talk about conflicts in a peaceful way, how to solve conflicts. And so mentoring is a powerful tool in many ways. And Christopher from Mentoring, a mentoring program from Hamburg, says that for him, the most enriching thing about being a mentor is that one can immediately see that people feel taken seriously and integrated. Also, it's satisfying to help people overcome initial difficulties and minor issues. Many things that are entirely self-evident to people like us who have been living in the country for a long time can pose initial challenges for some. However, being able to assist people in overcoming these challenges, you soon realize that they flourish and become integrated into society, which I find very beautiful to witness. And this, of course, is very important, talking about identifying the right issues to talk about. But today I would like to widen our perspective and our angle a little bit by stressing the need that we have to talk and think, of course, about interculturality and transculturality in communication. So interculturality would mean that one would have the idea that maybe somebody from Iraq or Syria comes from an Arab culture and is totally different maybe from an Austrian culture or a Dutch culture, and kind of lives in a bubble, as well as the mentor lives in, you know, his or her Dutch or Belgian or whatever bubble. And I don't think that this is correct. I criticize this intercultural idea a lot because, you know, when a mentor and a mentee sit together in a cafe and they talk about things, then at least the mentor has been living in the society for years and the mentee maybe for weeks or months. And as we all know, in the first 24 hours in a different country, we as human beings identify many, many things and rules and values which surround us. So there is already a process of changing and growing after 24 hours. So think about what happened after 3 months or 5 months. So we need transculturality, which is to acknowledge that somebody has a rough idea about the society she or he is living in. So, of course, you know, we have to realize that we are all cultural hybrids. And this means for mentors a lot, because this means we have to talk about especially transcultural competences and communication. So we have to talk about a continuing education for mentors concerning transcultural competences, self-reflection, transcultural communication, and being prepared for an integration process for both sides. So when talking a lot with refugees, maybe from Ukraine or Syria, you have to be ready to become a little bit Syrian and a little bit Ukrainian. And this kind of is an important part. And of course, I talked about this, plain facts are a very important part of this work. So the question now comes, how does effective transcultural communication work? And well, here we have the scene of Christopher Columbus, you know, reaching the wrong continent. You know, when you reach the wrong street already, you know, you're blaming yourself. He has been reaching the wrong continent, but this didn't change his arrogant attitude towards other people, as you can see here. So the spoiler, of course, is it's not like that. But the question is, how is it? And so I would like to present ideas about definitions of transcultural communication, although one has to state that there is no such thing as the definition of transcultural communication, which is a good thing. As we have to debate and talk about this and learn in the process. So instead, what we see in contemporary social spaces are multiple cultural levels or scales simultaneously present, with participants moving through and across them, negotiating meaning on the move as the interaction progresses. Such communication may be best characterized as transcultural communication, defined as communication where interactions move through and across, rather in between, cultural and linguistic boundaries. Thus, named languages and cultures can no longer be taken for granted, and in the process, borders became blurred, transgressed, and transcended. And I think it's wonderful that we all come from different backgrounds and different countries, because for somebody, for example, from Belgium, this whole thing is not so hard to understand, because in Belgium there are 2 languages, but 1 nationality, and or even 3 languages in Belgium, but 2 major ones. And so, of course, it's not kind of an easy set of identities like nation, language, history, and things like that. It's more complicated. And this complication and these complicated matters we have to address. So what we are talking about in transcultural communication is that we don't want to follow the example of Mr. Obelix from France. Ils sont fous ces Romains. So these Romans are crazy, he would say. So he would not be open to learn from other people. And this is something we have to do. So what we need is an idea that there are critical incidents in cross-cultural communication. And if we address them, we have already a high percentage of possible errors and misunderstandings out of our way. So situations in which a misunderstanding, a problem or conflict arises as a result of the cultural differences of the interacting parties, or a problem of cross-cultural adaptation and communication. So, for example, it starts already with the greeting. And this means a lot, because this is the first time, for example, a mentee and a mentor see each other. So if this goes wrong in the first minute, that's bad. And so we need an idea what greetings are like in different countries before we meet, because there won't be time to explain. The first impression is the first impression. So For example, I should know that, for example, in the north of Germany and in the Netherlands, it's okay to say one word. Could be moin, could be dag. That's fine. But if you meet somebody from Senegal, you should be prepared for salam alaikum, wa alaikum assalam, nakan gadef, jam firek, nakan gadef, jam firek, anasa jabar, anasa jeker, jam firek, things like that. Or if you meet somebody from an Arab country, you should be prepared for salam alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh wa kull al-am wa anta bi khair, and the answers and the questions coming after. So that takes 5 minutes. And if you don't do that, you won't establish a good communication ground to talk about stuff later. So what we need as well is an idea about synchronous versus asynchronous communication. For example, in Egypt, it's a sign of a good education if you interrupt somebody, if he says something or she which interests you. If you do that in Germany, people would think that you are very impolite, and it could be fun, you know, to discuss this in between us now in the group, how in different countries we deal with being interrupted. So we're talking about proximity. When I asked somebody, you know, for a way in Egypt, this person would just put, you know, his arm around my shoulder and say, well, my beloved one, I will bring you there. So, ya habibi. So that's 45 minutes in close body contact and with a stranger. So there are different ideas about proximity. And I can tell you, as somebody coming from the north of Germany, that was the hardest part. And so we are talking about direct or indirect communication, how you address things, conflicts, maybe criticism. Are you doing that, you know, maybe like it is, as I have learned in the Netherlands, that, you know, it's a cultural value that people are honest and direct. So in other cultures, it's the opposite or less. So our self-reflection and on the Arab in the Arab question here, there's a K missing, so it's Kaifa Haluka or Haluki. There's a Chinese and a Korean a thing on this page. The Korean is Annyeonghaseyo and the Chinese is Ni hao ma. So how are you? So it surrounds us. It's everywhere. So the idea of we and they, which is like kind of the first approach toward mentoring, we and they, we have to help them or something. I think that's something from the past, because we are all cultural hybrids. So globalization and hybridization already has reached us. So one could say that we are living in a continuous recreation of culture, and we are products and makers kind of this recreation. So to give you an example how this works, of course, is people who write on T-shirts, "Don't panic, I'm Islamic." To be able to write that on a T-shirt, which is a perfectly American way to communicate, to write messages on T-shirts, you know, this is Janis Joplin in Islamic, kind of, you know. That's something, you know, to be able to identify that this is a message you would like to send. You have to know the society already very good in which you live. So you're part of the society. If you write hijab, my right, my choice, my life, or in addition, I cover my hair, not my brain, you are a Westerner. But somebody from the West who is a part of the Muslim religion. And this is not impossible. Many millions of people in this world are Westerners and Muslims. there's no contradiction in that. So we are cultural hybrids. So we should know about what's going on in our societies. So for example, on Sunday starts Ramadan. And that's not only festivity in the Arab countries, that's a festivity in Western Europe as well. On the 8th of April is Roma Day. Any plans for visiting a concert of a Roma music band on the 22nd of April? Passover, Pesach will start. So has anybody, wondered how you can congratulate these people to their festivities? So Chag Sameach or Kula Sana Winter Tay, all these things we should know. So migration as well, and I would like to talk about a migration now a little bit, has many phases. And one of the postmodern phase of migration is the person of the trans-migrant. There's a traditional definition for a trans-migrant, saying this is an immigrant passing through a country or place on the way to the country in which he or she will be an immigrant. That's 90s, I say. The postmodern idea about a trans-migrant is totally different. That is a person, and the concept comes, for example, from Ludger Pries, who is emigrating, who comes to a different country, but who has not the plan to assimilate or to integrate fully. But this person has the idea, for example, to find work, send money home, know enough English, French, Swedish, or German to be able to work, but will never give up thinking and talking on a daily basis in Albanian, Portuguese, or whatever language. So a trans-migrant is a postmodern migrant, and it's very interesting to talk about this with Ukrainian friends, for example, who have the idea in many cases that as soon as their country is finally in peace again, they will return. So, you would mentor somebody who has not the idea to become fully integrated in the society. Well, you should address that. And you should taking this fact into account, of course. So there is a mobility now in this world and in all of us. And for example, if you're interested in this topic, Özkazan Span talks a lot about this in his book Transnational Migration and the New Subjects of Work. And this means that we have to readdress our discussions about assimilation and integration. So I just could give you the example of Little Lagos, Brixton Market in London, or in Düsseldorf, Little Tokyo. I usually go there to find good ramen, and then I go to Düsseldorf, to Little Tokyo. This is like, it feels like Tokyo, but it's in Düsseldorf, in Germany. So what does that mean for the mentoring process? That means identifying together what information is useful for the mentee. What kind of support does the mentee need to reach his aims? What is the cultural background of the mentee? What languages do they speak? Ideas about gender, age, education, family, society, and so much more. What are the social systems that they want to break through? Learning from each other, asking questions, and finding common ground. And I would like to finish with an example from my own experience. when I met 6 men, in this case from the Ivory Coast, Côte d'Ivoire, and in the middle of nowhere, more or less, in Niedersachsen in Germany, living in a house there. And they had the idea to go to Germany to earn money to send home to support their families, but they were stuck kind of waiting for language courses and integration programs starting. So they were not only stuck, they were lost. I talked to them a lot, and out came a spontaneous mentoring program in French, and trying to give them an idea what Germany is about and what opportunities they could have beside of waiting for the administration to support them in any way. And it came out that we talked about, kind of instructions for use for Germany and mot d'emploi pour l'Allemagne. And there were questions, we could address, like, for example, for somebody who's 27 years old, that this person has to work or can work in Germany for more than 40 years from now on. So it would be totally useful and a rational thing to invest 3 years of your life to get a proper education, because you can use that for 37 years to earn good money. But this concept was new to some of them. And so this means that at the end of this common process, in which I had the privilege to learn a lot about Ivory Coast and how they thought that problems can be addressed, and what they thought about Germans, for example. More or less, they thought Germans are bizarre, like a bizarre group of people. That now 5 of those 6 get a proper education, so-called Ausbildung, in the harbor of Hamburg. And these are jobs which are in high demand, and can help them a lot finding in Germany what they were looking for, but as well helps the German economy and society a lot in having people who are motivated to work. So I hope this was more or less 25 minutes. Thanks a lot.
You are fantastic, Jens. And let me see how I can not spotlight you anymore. Wow. Okay, loads of content. Let me give people to think about your questions. My major takeaways, I'm sure we all had very different takeaways, but some of your sentences were beautiful. I loved the one, because you just mentioned some of your huge sentences were just put there in between, like a small sentence, Jens, whereas we should have put it in the spotlight. But stuff like, I loved it, how you said, mentors are also role models in talking about, into learning how to talk about conflicts in a peaceful way. Wow, I saw a lot of mentors in front of me. I thought, that's a magical sentence. I really will steal it. Sorry about that.
You may.
The concept of transculturality, I have never been reading about it. That was new to me. Bit of a missing thing in my knowledge. So that was a bit tough stuff. But it's good that you explained it. I also loved the stuff how you explained about how you would explain it, that the goal is not always integration. I think it's good that you mention it. We should speak more about it. I love also the way how you said, talk to the mentee to ask what is useful to them, what they want. Don't take it for granted that they want to integrate, but explain it to them why it's important to do stuff sometimes in new society. Oh, what a lot of rich stuff. Okay, let's see if people have any questions to Jens. Anything is good. Do you guys have any questions? You can also say it or type it.
So, can I go, Sylvia?
Sure.
Yeah, hi Jens, good to see you again.
Hi, Gisbert.
Hi, hoe gaat het?
Dag.
Dag, hoe gaat het? How are you?
My second Dutch course will start today, so
Okay, we get into that later. So, no, I was curious. You mentioned a lot of things that are important to keep in mind when visiting a new mentee. As a program coordinator, what if you had to make a top 3 to before the first meeting that you would recommend coordinators to help their mentors with? What would it be? For example, the greeting was something that you named, but there are many things that you can dive into and ask questions about as a mentor. But is there like a top 3 or a top 5 that you say, okay, this is the first things that you need to pay attention to or help your mentors pay attention to?
well, thanks a lot, Gisbert, for this question, because that's the perfect opportunity to stress one big topic in transcultural studies, and that is usually it's about questions and not answers. So this means that like, for example, basic information that the organization of a mentoring program has about somebody would be like nationality, maybe gender, age, maybe the language somebody is speaking as the maternal language. And now comes the transcultural thing. In intercultural studies, it's easy to deduct information from these basic information. So somebody comes from Iraq, so think about that or talk about that. That would help this person. But in transcultural perspectives, it's much more about ask this person where this person is from. For example, somebody comes from Iraq. That doesn't give me any useful information about anything. This person could be Muslim or Yazid or Christian or Jewish, you know. So I think that there is kind of a top 3, and this top 3 is clear your mind. That is, forget about stereotypes, prejudgments, and kind of everything you've seen in documentaries. Second, be as open as you can be. Nobody has, to grow beyond his or her own boundaries, but be as open as possible. And third, prepare for a good transcultural communication, which is asking questions, but listen closely and use your background information that, for example, the organization can give you before as a tool to ask the right questions. And this is like the top 3.
Yeah.
So, for example, in meeting the men from Ivory Coast and the Ivorians, I knew already that from my personal experience, family experience, that people from West Africa sometimes they have seen so many people die between the age of 40 and 50 that they don't see the sense, when you're 35 to go into university for 3 or 4 years. So this was the possibility to address this subject, but there were 6 men. So how would I know whom of them knows what about the society? And the funny thing is, one of those 6 already made a major, an MA in France, and he was just coming to Germany because in France he couldn't find a job in the 6 months after his after he finished university. So he should have left France for Ivory Coast, and then he came to Germany to seek asylum, and he knew more about Europe than the normal European, So it would have been totally ridiculous of me, to address some things he already knew for many years. So that's why I'm saying these three things are making transcultural communication possible and successful. And I know that I ask a lot of people becoming part in this transcultural communication, but try it out and see how it goes, everybody. It's just fantastic how many things one can learn in a simple conversation.
It makes me think about a bit of a street saying, and they say assumption is the mother of all fuck ups.
Absolutely, yes.
Pardon my English.
We should record that. Yes.
Yeah. So if I put aside all my assumptions and ask these questions, even if you think you know, you don't know.
So exactly, it's background information is very important. So I just would like to stress that there's no misunderstanding now here. It is very, very important to know as much as possible about the country of origin of somebody or the cultural group of somebody, but it's just the basis of asking the right questions. It's never the basis of already knowing answers for questions you've never asked this person.
Thanks.
It seems to me, Jens, that just like 25 years ago, when so many immigrants arrived to Europe for the first time, it's like as if, again, in mentoring programs, we should really reintroduce the concept of talking about this topic to mentors, but from a new framework, more the transculturality and not the interculturality. Okay, more questions. Sophie, is there anything you would like to say to Jens? Everything is good.
No, everything is good and clear. Thanks a lot.
Sure. Jasmine, anything on your side? Comments?
No, everything was clear.
No problem, guys. Alyona, Marisa, any questions that you guys feel like asking?
Oh, very inspiring thoughts. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Grazie mille.
So I do have one more question, Jens.
Yes,
Alexei, not sure if you wanted to ask a question to Jens.
Well, I missed the parts of the of the discussion. That's why I'm
worries.
fine. So I have no direct questions.
Okay. So Jens, I do have a question to you because I will dive into this concept of transculturality. You mentioned also the concept of mentoring to break through systems. And when telling to us to talk to mentees, to encourage mentors to talk to mentees to see which systems they want to break through, I understand now what you mean, like education or the labor market or things like that.
Yes.
But can you explain a bit more what you mean by mentoring as an instrument to break through systems?
Yes, with pleasure. That's because of those 25 minutes, maybe something I didn't explain as it should be explained. So thanks for asking that, because that's the perfect opportunity to maybe fill in some gaps there. So the idea is that these social systems, and let's maybe explain that with the example of education. That education as a social system means that people who, for example, have parents who were already very successful in this system have much much better opportunities to flourish in the system, to get a higher education, to finish that higher education with good marks, and therefore being able to, you know, become part of the next social system, which is the labor market. People who, for example, don't have so many books at home, or maybe no books, or parents who can't read or write, or parents who are traumatized by the migration process and the experiences there. People who parents who can't help their children because they don't know German, when it's a German education system. These parents won't be able to help their children to break through the social system of education. So what then an 8-year-old girl or boy need is, or a 12-year-old or 16-year-old, is somebody who knows the language of the education system, in my example, German or English or French, who knows what is important to know, how you should address problems in school, where you find help, things like that. Mentoring, and then in this situation, and it could be even 18-year-olds, 21-year-olds who would need information like that, would mean, in a very practical sense, that you finally get the information everybody else had, but you didn't. So with this information, you are able to compete, and you are able to finally compete with everybody else, getting better marks, finishing education, being able to being part of higher education, and so on. And so this means, by just like giving the right information at the right time, in the right like communication circumstances, and address age or gender or special problems and things like that, one is able to totally change a biography. And this is the wisdom of Isaias Ramos, who exactly said this in January, that a good mentor can save a life. And it's exactly about that. And one could talk about different systems. We could talk about the labor market, and many other systems. It always works in a way, in the same with the same method. But the information, of course, differs, and the age differs of the mentees, but the idea is the same. And when I present it like that, then I think it becomes so obvious that mentoring is maybe the major tool of fighting injustices in our societies.
You know what I love about this, Jens? Because these are, of course, huge statements, that you make it very clear that it has a very, very practical part to it. And I love that. And you know what's so strange? That again, your sentence, you mentor, blah, 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 so that you have the same information in the system that everybody else has already. I think we greatly underestimate it. When you talk to universities and first-generation students, they say, well, the information is there, right? It's there on intranet and in the study manuals. And when you talk to students of Duo for a Job, yeah, well, the information is there how to find a job on the labor market. Yeah. So not true.
Yeah,
Crazy
exactly.
that it boils down to that very practical thing, that somebody actually gives you the practical approach. Yeah. So underestimated.
Yeah.
All right. Guys, any questions, any thoughts to Jens? Also any reflection, thought? Everything is good.
And all
Gisbert?
languages are welcome.
And all languages are welcome. Gisbert, anything on your side that you want to comment?
Well, I had opportunity to see Jens for a week, so I have had many interesting and relevant conversations with Jens in that week.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
I've already asked a lot of questions to Jens, to be honest.
Okay. Okay, guys. Jens, any final comment you would like to give to us? I think most of us here are our mentoring coordinators, matchmakers, mentors. Anything else that you would like to comment?
Well, it's just about, when meeting and talking about mentoring as a tool and as an important tool and as a powerful tool, to maybe take this inspiration home into your communities, in your mentoring communities, because sometimes it's stressful and frustrating to work in that field. And I think it's a very, very important thing from time to time to talk about the mentoring programs and being a mentor, how close this is to a fighter for social justice and values like justice in society. So maybe that could be today not only a challenging new idea about transculturality, but as well an inspiration to work together as hard as possible to reach our common aims.
Beautiful final comment. Thank you for that, Jens. People, thank you so much for joining today. The next community workshop, online workshop, will be on just give me 1 sec, I will look it up. On Thursday, the 4th of April. It will be delivered by somebody who is completely not from the mentoring field. Jan Willem, he's a marketing consultant and entrepreneur, and he will talk to us about the marketing and sales of mentoring. Very unexpected angle, okay? So we will not talk business, but he will have a very different approach to mentoring. So we'll see you then at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And then I hope to see you guys personally in Paris, of course. If there are any questions, just reach out to me. And thanks again for joining. Jens, a big thank you so much for making time for us, and we stay in touch with you.
Thanks a lot for inviting, and thanks a lot to everybody for the attention and being here. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.